Well, welcome to a very special edition of Bolling. I have a very good friend of my guy, but known a very, very long time. One of the most, let's call him the most insider of insiders in politics, going back a good 40 or 50 years. Friend of mine, Roger Stone. Welcome, Roger. Roger, I want to bring you in because so many things are flying. You know, it's like Trump raised his right hand, got sworn back into the Oval, and it's been, the news cycle is amped up, if you can believe it or not. So just in the last, let's call it the last 24 hours, let's talk a little bit about our friend Rod Blagojevich, former governor of Illinois, getting pardoned by Donald Trump. Your thoughts on that one? Let's start there.
But first of all, it's important to recognize that Rod Blagojevich did nothing whatsoever wrong. When he refused a direct order from Barack Obama to appoint Valerie Jarrett to the Senate seat that Obama was vacating to run for president, and he refused, they charged him with political corruption, claiming that a wiretap they had placed on him showed him soliciting funds for the appointment of the seat. Rod's defense was quite simple. I never did any such thing. Play the tape. Play the tape. He was not allowed, his lawyers were not allowed to play the tape, which would have exonerated him in court. He appealed to the appeals court. They would not order the judge to allow the hearing of the tape. Under the Constitution, you're allowed to see and confront all evidence and claims against you. So Rod Blagojevich was railroaded. Now they've gotten to know him and realize how incredibly talented he is as not just as a political figure, but also as a communicator. I think he would have been president. He was the first governor in the country to endorse Barack Obama. His reward for that was being sent to prison for 8 years. Now, President Trump commuted his sentence during the end of his last presidency. He was wrongfully convicted in a politically motivated trial, but he didn't fully pardon him. And the Illinois state legislature is so afraid of his popularity with the people of Illinois that they passed a bill saying that Rod Blagojevich can never run for office in the state of Illinois again. This pardon, of course, I think makes him eligible to run for federal office if he wanted to. I'm not sure he does. But I've been in restaurants with him in Chicago. He's beloved, and everybody understands he got screwed. He would have been pardoned in the beginning, but certain Illinois Republicans, I think, unwisely objected. What's most amazing about him, Eric, is when you get to know him, when you're with him, this didn't break him. All this did was deepen his faith in Jesus Christ. Even though he is still a Democrat, to recognize the epic corruption and weaponization of the criminal justice system. So I think now he calls himself a Trumplicrat.
Trumplicrat. I was one of his constituents when he was governor of Illinois. I lived in, believe it or not, Chicago, a conservative living in the deepest blue city of the deepest blue county of the deepest blue state. It was horrendous for me. Couldn't wait to get out of there. Rod was a good guy. He was a very good governor. And, whatever they got him on, like, hey, what's this thing worth? It's literally, he didn't negotiate a transfer of money. He just said, what's a seat worth? And it could be anything. It could be worth, I don't know, a lot of support from someone who would support Rod Blagojevich to do something else. It was such bullshit. It's incredible, especially knowing what we see and what we're seeing going on for the last 4 years in the Biden administration. I can't imagine how much of the money that's just gone out the door of America, where it's gone, where there's real corruption happening. I hope those folks are held accountable. Roger, something very important came just recently. The FBI has now been proven the FBI lied to the FISA court 28 times. The FBI lied to the FISA court 28 times, and the only reason why they would do that is so they could spy on Americans, right?
Not surprising. Look, first, John Brennan, the CIA director, went to the British-speaking nation's intelligence services to give them a list of 26 friends or supporters of Donald Trump, asking that they be surveilled and so-called bumped. I was on that list. So was George Papadopoulos, a number of others. That was to give the CIA deniability. So they began spying on Trump as his campaign ramped up. We know from the Durham report they were spying on him during his when he was the president-elect. They were spying on his campaign during the campaign. This is the greatest single dirty trick in American politics. The so-called Russian collusion hoax is nothing less than the full use of the authority of the United States government and the extraordinary capability of our intelligence agencies using two pieces of evidence that they know are fraudulent, that are fake, the so-called Steele dossier, paid for by Hillary illegally, the FEC fined her for it, and the claim that the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, was hacked by the Russians, for which there is no forensic proof or evidence whatsoever. And they used it to illicitly take down a duly elected president. I think it's treasonous. I think that's why a number of the people involved got pardons, preemptive pardons. But the fact that Trump survived all that and went on to become a great president in his first term is a miracle.
So, Roger, a lot of us want, we see Trump come in, he's literally cleaning house. It's fantastic. So there are a couple of names that come up that I think people on this side of D.C., the rest of the country, would like to see prosecuted. And you mentioned one, Hillary Clinton. Can she be prosecuted? Should she be? Will she be? And then Anthony Fauci. I know Biden gave these preemptive pardons, but I mean, why don't we play the game that they're playing with Trump and have a bunch of states' attorneys general sue these guys?
Well, there's a couple of interesting parts of this. Your biggest, I'm not an attorney, but your biggest obstacle, of course, is the statute of limitations. There's a reason why John Durham took his sweet ass time to get his report out, to make sure the statute of limitations ran on Hillary, Jake Sullivan, James Comey, John Brennan, Susan Rice, all the other co-conspirators in the Russian collusion hoax. Beyond that, Durham didn't really tell us much, which investigative journalists like Aaron Matei and others had already found out, told us things we already knew. There is one crime for which there is no toll, no end, and that is the crime of treason. So I question whether John Brennan can be charged with that crime because there's a series of treasonous actions on his behalf. He's first of all, an admitted communist. He is a convert to radical Islam when he was stationed in Riyadh. He signed the visas of 4 of the hijackers that hit this country on 9/11. He is the brainchild. He is the orchestrator of the whole Russian collusion hoax. He begins spying on Donald Trump. I think there's a serious case to be made that he could be tried for treason. But the other problem you have is that the left knows that any trial that takes place in D.C., you will never get a fair and objective judge. You'll never get a fair and objective jury, no matter how strong your case. So my suggestion would be that House Speaker Johnson and the Oversight Committee begin having field hearings, and they send subpoenas to those who got preemptive pardons. They cannot refuse to testify. It would be a violation of the law, and they can't plead the fifth because they accepted pardon. And if any of them perjure themselves in those hearings, they can be charged in Mississippi, where the hearing is being held, for example.
That's well, they say, fuck around, find out. They fucked around with Trump. They may find out. You mentioned Susan Rice as part of the Russian disinformation, the Russian collusion bullshit that they pulled on you guys, on all you guys. Susan Rice also happens, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't she the one who was the agency head at USAID and that we're now finding out was a multi-billion-dollar slush fund for Democrats' whims and nonsense programs that they're sending our money around the world for and with?
Yeah, USAID was signed into existence by President John Kennedy, so the Congress never created it. He did it for a good reason, to fight communism in the small developing countries around the world, because when you're helping people eat, it's easier to persuade them that our way of life is better than the communists. And it morphed into exactly what you say, a slush fund, deeply involved in clandestine political operations to either prop up fake narratives in this country. So movie stars get paid billions to go, or millions to go have their picture taken with Zelensky, for example, funneling money to the Clinton Foundation, funneling money to the New York Times. What could that be about? Paying journalists? Or maybe that's Operation Mockingbird. We've seen that before. Politico. Yeah. I wonder why they were always attacking me so much during my bogus trial. Now I know they were being paid to do it. Probably would have done it for free.
You know what's amazing, Roger, as we sit here and speak, and now we're finding out that there are all these ways that the political apparatus, and they're not bipartisan, the partisan political apparatus in D.C., when they have the ball, when they have the agency heads of USAID and others, all of a sudden CNN is tipped that you're about to be busted by the FBI. Like, how in the world did they have 12 cameras ready to go to watch your bust in Florida? Clearly they were tipped. And the incestuous nature of all this. Go ahead.
Very simple. I was arrested at 6:06. At 6:11, my lawyer got a text message from someone at CNN and who said, your client has just been arrested. And he said, arrested for what? And she sent him a copy of my indictment, which was sealed and was not unsealed until 11 o'clock that morning. Had no court stamp or time markings on it, but if you went to the metadata tags, you saw the initials of the man who wrote it, Andrew Weissman, the de facto head of the Mueller investigation, because Mueller was around the bend, and now the chief legal analyst at MSNBC, who said last week, Trump can't fire FBI agents. Of course he can, you moron. He's the head of the executive. He can fire anyone he wants. You're just worried about them investigating you. So his initials were on the metadata tags on my document. He leaked the document. By the way, that's a crime. Leaking a arrest or search warrant in advance of it being executed is a felony. But the judge in my case didn't care. I can't wait until Andrew Weissman's home and Norm Eisen, the other architect of the Russian collusion hoax and the two impeachments in January 6th and so on. I can't wait until there is a raid on their home at 6 o'clock in the morning by 29 FBI agents, and there's a Newsmax camera crew in tow.
Well, I don't know about Newsmax, but maybe we'll have a bowling camera crew, digital,
bowling.
or Roger Stone and bowling camera crew. Hey,
an info, who knows?
Infowars, sure. I would love, what's oh God, Infowars. Come on, Alex. Alex and I, we obviously you know Alex very well too. That'd be a lot of fun. Roger, Alex, and bowling. We'll go have cameras rolling before the FBI raids Hillary Clinton's house or whatever. What do you know about big balls? What do you know about? And let me preface this with Big Balls is the 19-year-old kid who's just finding a whole bunch of shit that they're giving away of our money at USAID and the other places, Department of Education, et cetera.
First of all, this is not the first time this happened. So under Reagan, we had something called the Grace Commission. That was like the forerunner to what Elon is doing. They came through up with a giant stack of wasteful spending that could be cut, and then nothing happened because we had no social media and it never got any traction. So I think Elon's Doge is necessary. I think it's brilliant. He's taking huge advantage of his access and his own technological skills to get at data that he's entitled to have. Some wacky federal judge tells the Secretary of the Treasury he's not entitled to have the Treasury Secretary, Department of Treasury records. How crazy is that? Think about that for a moment. It won't stand. So, and they're just scratching the surface. Wait until you see not only the politically motivated stuff at USAID, but the waste of money across the board and the payoffs to the woke, ecosystem are going to be overwhelming. The left is going out of their minds. Trump wants to shut down the Department of Education. I saw a bunch of Democrat congressmen trying to storm the place. I have bad news for Maxine Waters. She's not going to be able to wear that wig in prison.
Ooh. That's another one. Honestly, Maxine Waters, whose husband benefited greatly from some banking regulation issues in California. I mean, that was like, it's probably beyond the statute of limitations. There's so much more to talk about, Roger. What about this idea that Trump wants to offer federal employees a buyout through September? A lot of money. Seems like a lot of money to me. I wish it would have been less, but whatever. A lot of them want to take it somewhere. I believe they believe it could be up to 8 to 10% of the federal workforce could take it. And now a federal judge says, hold on, that's not constitutional yet. I'm guessing it's going to continue up the courts and eventually be found constitutional. What are your thoughts on offering the buyouts to these federal employees? I say, why don't we just fire them?
But first of all, we recognize that if they left tomorrow, nobody would even notice. Yeah. So there'd be no difference in government services. Secondarily, I think Trump probably could just fire them if he wanted to, but recognizing that people have families and they need to eat, and a lot of them are just bureaucrats. They probably don't love Donald Trump, but putting that aside, I think it's perfectly proper. But the important point is he does have the authority to downsize the government. Republicans, as you know, Eric, for years we've been talking about smaller government. Now, Donald Trump, just like he was the first president to get us energy independence after every Republican said he would do it, just like he was the first Republican president to move the capital of Israel, just like Every other Republican president said they would do it. In this area, he's going to make the government smaller and smarter. He's a businessman, and I think Elon Musk is great because he is going right in the heart of the beast. And what he's uncovered is shocking. It's literally shocking.
One final thought. This came out in the last 48 hours as well. Mayor Eric Adams, Trump is having his investigation extinguished. What are your thoughts on that? Because, look, a lot of people came around. Bezos came around. Zuckerberg came around. But there are some who are pretty nasty, pretty mean, pretty horrible people to Trump. I don't feel the need to let Eric Adams, the wildly blue Democrat from New York, all of a sudden when he sees the writing on the wall, to become MAGA. Not sure I want to let him on the MAGA bus. Don't we have a right to keep some of those folks off, Roger, you and I?
First of all, this is all based on a false narrative. So the idea that Eric Adams was an outspoken opponent and critic of Joe Biden's open borders policy was the reason he was persecuted and why he deserved to have these charges dropped. That's all a lie. He was a full-throated advocate for New York City being a sanctuary city.
Sanctuary city, yeah.
Illegals would always be welcome in New York. In 2018, he called Donald Trump an imbecile and a moron in a speech. Now, suddenly, Eric, he's very concerned about the way these January 6ers were treated. Very concerned. He didn't say anything about it 4 years ago when it happened. It just came to him recently. All of a sudden, Eric Adams is deeply concerned about parents who go to school board meetings because they're concerned about the curriculum being forced on their children being classified as domestic terrorists. All of a sudden, he's very upset about this. People should know that the charges against him were not spurious. They were. I saw folks joking on Fox. I think it was Kat Timp saying, "Oh, they bumped him up from coach to first class on Turkish Airlines, and he got an extra Bloody Mary." Wrong. He took $100,000 from Turkish interests, illegal money. In return, he allowed the owners of this building in Manhattan to operate without a building permit. He took that money and he gave it to straw donors, New Yorkers, who then submitted it to the campaign finance matching program in New York City, turning $100,000 into nearly $800,000. Those are serious violations of federal and state crimes. By the way, Letitia James did the same thing, and she did it for her 6 years in the city council. It's a crime, serious crime. So this false narrative that he's being persecuted is false. The claim that the charges against him are not serious. His police commissioners are under investigation. His fire commissioners are under investigation. Some are under indictment. His school chancellor had to quit. There are 4 sealed indictments that were just filed last Thursday. We don't even know what's in them other than they're sealed for reasons of national security. So that implies to me that Eric Adams took money from other foreign countries. So I disagree with the president's decision. I don't know why he did it. When you have Roger Ver, for example, who's been indicted, the father of Bitcoin, one of the fathers of cryptocurrency, and they've charged him with not paying enough taxes when he renounced his citizenship because they kept prosecuting him for contributing to conservative and liberty-oriented causes. He is awaiting trial and that law needs to be the law on what you pay as an expatriate is really it's unfair. It's not based on income. Needs to be reformed. When they won't dismiss the charges against this guy who's really being persecuted like Trump because of his politics, and you dismiss the charges on Eric Adams, that makes no sense to me.
So let me ask you this. I know we got to let you go, Roger, but very quickly. So I mentioned Jeff Bezos coming over, kissing the ring at Mar-a-Lago, sending a bunch of money to the inauguration. $40 million from Melania's story on Netflix, on Amazon Prime. I'm sorry. Zuckerberg coming over, donating a lot of money, firing his DEI. You see these people coming late to the game. They realize Trump has the power. He's got the ball. What's a guy who's been through so many cycles of politics? What does that make you feel? Do you believe them, or are they Trojan horses, or they're just fly-by-nights are going to go back as soon as someone else is in office?
Well, first of all, anybody would be stupid not to believe that Donald Trump has the longest memory in history. Now, I heard a story, which may be apocryphal, but it's probably true, that when Mark Zuckerberg handed President Trump $1 million check for his inauguration, Trump looked at it and said, "That's very nice, Mark. Now you're 449 million short of the money you used to try to screw me in the 2020 election." That's the Donald Trump I love.
So do you trust them? You trust these folks? Are they?
No, not at all. And look, Google are the worst offenders. I mean, they're the worst manipulators of information for political reasons. I don't trust any of them. I don't think they've had a change of heart, but I think they understand there's a new sheriff in town, and he's going to enforce the laws as far as antitrust, for example, to conform with the law. The coverage of the Trump presidency in the first month is so different than 2017. But what's really different is how sure-footed Donald Trump is. The 4 years in the wilderness, the 4 years, even while he was fighting the tsunami of lawfare, gave him time to think and I think to completely understand how the deep state works, how the media jackals, who we now realize are being paid by the deep state, work, how not every Republican is really his friend, that half the Republicans can't be trusted. So he's hit the ground running here with a plan to completely reform and revolutionize the country so we can move into the golden age. We're about to have an unprecedented age of peace, prosperity, security, justice, and law and order. And he's the man with the plan. You can see it. There's no hesitation. He moves ahead like a juggernaut every day. Firing the head of the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., which was originally supposed to be for cultural events, but it constantly just has programming pushing the woke agenda, drag shows, and so on, firing it and appointing himself chairman. I mean, how cool does that get?
He's doing things that no one ever thought of doing. I mean, I'm talking about taking back the Panama Canal, Greenland, Canada's 51st. It's just, you know what I noticed, Roger? I'll let you go, but I've known Donald Trump for 40 years. Not a lot of people say that, but prior to Celebrity Apprentice, Regular Apprentice, I've known him a long time, and you have as well. I've seen you at Trump Tower a million times. I get it. We both have known him. When first term, I think he thought he was going to do what he's doing right now in the first term when it was too hard for him to get to it. When he thought he was going to get that second term, he was shocked he didn't get that second term. You could see it. He spent 4 years going, what the hell just happened here? I'm supposed to be finishing what I started. And I correct me if I'm wrong. You know him better than I do, probably. This time, he's not going to allow 1 minute of this presidency to be wasted by him waiting to implement his ideas and his policies.
Well, I think by 2020, he was starting to see the big picture. The pandemic destroyed his campaign style. If you can't do a Trump rally, what do you have? The Trump rally is the centerpiece of his campaign. And if you watched the polls in 2020, as soon as the lockdowns were over, he started campaigning and doing the rallies again. He began to rise in all the polls. But I also think that the 4 years have been beneficial. He's going to be an even greater president in this term than he would have been in the first term. And yes, he's in a hurry because there's a lot to fix before we get to the midterm elections. Traditionally, as you know, the party in power loses seats. We have the narrowest of margins. You have 2 vacant seats in Florida. They're playing games with Elise Stefanik's seat to try to elect a rhino rather than Anthony Constantino, who was the guy who remember the giant vote for Trump sign he put on his factory, and the local mayor tried to throw him in jail. So you've got Trump on fire with a very specific plan. Also, by the way, surrounding himself by and large with excellent people who know that their job is to carry out the boss's orders. Their job is not to derail or dilute or delay what Donald Trump wants done. It is to do what Donald Trump wants done. The confirmation of Tulsi Gabbard, who I think is one of the rising stars in this party. I'm glad she became a Republican. I predict to you right now she's going to be your first woman president. That was an important victory. RFK and the coalition with him, turning the old rules upside down. Eric, Republican Democrat isn't what matters anymore. Are you a globalist who is for war and censorship and letting big pharma and big food run amok? Or are you for peace, free speech, and just taking a hard look at the medicines and the foods that they're forcing on our families?
Yeah, Roger.
That's the divide today.
Yeah.
I think it's a complete political realignment, and I think it's going to be durable.
You are so right. It's the America First combined with MAHA, Make America Healthy Again. It's unstoppable. It's an unstoppable train, folks. The great Roger Stone, who's been, by the way, get me Roger Stone. If you haven't seen it on Netflix, you got to watch it. It is amazing. It's about Roger Stone, that man right there. It's a wonderful, wonderful documentary. Awesome. Really good to have you on again, Roger. Appreciate your time.
Great to see you, Eric.
All right, folks, that's this for this bowling. Have a great one. It's bowling special, so to speak. If I can get it out of my tongue, that'd be great. Bowling special here. We will see you again tomorrow. I'm at the White House on Thursday. Going to sit down and, have a few conversations with the folks in power there. Thursday, I'll bring all that to you on Friday. Give you all the dirt and the scoop. What's going on from inside the belly of the beast, D.C., the Oval Office. Going to be there Thursday. Bring it to you on Friday.